Sacred symbols are the language of the universe. They have the ability to lift the veil of who we really are, which is the underlying geometry of humanity, cell division, and many other images that encode our reality. The subliminal threshold has been crossed by mystics throughout time by use of images, myths, folklore, and symbols. The archetypes and icons of geometry are absolutely perfect, unchanging, and timeless realities springing directly from the God mind. Science is in agreement that the universe is composed of vibration and frequency, and the principles of these sacred symbols are directly correspondent to all waveform phenomena. Sacred geometry and symbology can be viewed as vibration on the visual, time, and space planes. Symbols are powerful images representing intricate issues. Confucius observed that, quote, signs and symbols rule the world, not words nor laws, end quote. Yet the same symbol can have different interpretations in different cultures and at different times. Such is the case with the swastika associated with Nazi Germany's absolute evil. Historically in the Far East, however, the swastika is a symbol of the sun's yearly path. It is regarded as a good luck symbol and represents reincarnation in India even to this day. The Sphinx of Egypt is another potent symbol of esoteric ideas, as it is a surviving icon of pre-Sands Egypt, back when the land of northern Africa was a lush oasis. An ultimate esoteric question is the Riddle of Sphinx, which asks, what begins on 4 legs, moves to 2 legs, and finishes on 3 legs? The answer is a person who crawls on all 4s as a baby, walks on 2 legs as an adult, and walks with a cane in old age. Symbols, like sacred geometry, also have an unconscious appeal that is often perceived as beauty. Perhaps the reason why we feel so imbued with awe when we gaze upon sacred architecture is because God can be encoded and encountered in the mirror of bioarchitecture. Gothic architecture is an example that appears to capture celestial proportions and anchor it in the terrestrial realms. This is because architecture reflects back to us the magnificence of the divine proportion within our own human canon. For example, the place where the elbow bends, where the arm divides into 2 sections, is mathematically 21:34, or the phi ratio of 1 to 1.1618, which is identical to the mathematics of flowers like the sunflower floret, which has 21 spirals going clockwise and 34 going counterclockwise. It is in such realizations that we can have a peak experience, even though unaware or unconscious of why we are feeling exhilaration. Seizing the symbol. A case can be made that traditional symbols form a visual shorthand for ideas, concepts, and language, yet their functions and meaning extend far beyond that basic explanation. For thousands of years, symbols have enabled artists and craftsmen to embody and reinforce beliefs about human life through immediate and powerful images. Architects seized upon the principles of sacred geometry and incorporated them into their designs. Even mystics developed visual symbols to help them express the eternal. By such a measure, symbols rule the world, not words nor laws. What if the Cabal, in their designs for a new world order, inherited an array of powerful symbols and teachings which were originally positive, but have since been dreadfully contorted into something very negative? Maybe the elite possess the true secrets regarding our reality. It is believed that their symbolism and numerology can be used to decipher these secrets. The Illuminati self-expose their agenda to a certain extent. They believe symbolism gives them power to operate. This is why buildings, movies, cartoons, and video games are full of Masonic symbols. But the truth is that power does not lie within the symbols. Rather, it is the interpretation coming from our conscious, subconscious, and superconscious mind which makes certain symbols seem more powerful than others. Those who would control public opinion and influence what we deem valuable hide from public exposure for just that reason. They also do it so people argue amongst themselves over what is valid and what is not, and even whether invisible controllers actually exist. For example, it would be logical to think that a secret society would never give hints about their existence if they wish to remain hidden. That is exactly what they want you to think, so you can deny their existence. They are extremely clever. The symbol most often used by the Illuminati is the pyramid with the one eye, used in many different forms. The most popular is on the back of the $1 bill, which has a pyramid with the eye of providence at the apex. Just to give a vague idea of how much evidence exists for those who look, here's another example of both numerology and symbolism. We've all heard of the number 666 as the representation of Satan or a great evil. But it is just a number. Or is it? The number is divisible in many different ways. The Washington Monument, designed by a Freemason named Robert Mills, is 660 feet in size, 550 feet tall, and 111 feet deep, making it 666 feet long. Or looked at another way, the height of the obelisk itself is 55.5 feet, which equals 6,666 inches. Coincidence? Consider also that at the ground level, each side of the monument measures 55.5 feet long, or 666 inches. For us to understand Masonic symbolism, it is important we first understand the general meaning of symbols. Symbolic meanings. The Swiss psychiatrist and influential thinker Carl Jung believed that symbols occur with the same meaning across individual and cultural boundaries, and language makes no exception. He called the sum total of these symbols the collective unconscious. Carl Jung was obsessed with symbols, the collective unconscious, and the notion of synchronicity in our lives. He said synchronicity can be explained as the experience of two or more events, unlikely to occur together by chance, being observed to occur together in a meaningful manner. In layman's terms, synchronicities can be viewed as meaningful coincidences. In Jung's major contribution to an expanded formulation of analytical psychology, he explored the concept of symbolism through an examination of within the human psyche and analyzed the role symbols play in religion, mythology, alchemy, astrology, sociology, literature, art, and dreams. After extensive research into the foundations of astrology and a brilliant integration of his findings with mythical concepts, Jung came to the conclusion that astrology has deep, mystical, and spiritual underpinnings. It appears that the Masons, among others, are very much in tune with these. These universal concepts and symbols are, as indicated, often referred to as archetypes, the recognizable prototype or original model upon which all other concepts are patterned. The Masons apparently grasped the power of their practical use. Symbols also have a very dark side. They can be utilized as effective tools for instilling specific belief systems and fear into the mass population, usually subliminally. The biblical concept of Satan as the serpent coiled around the tree of knowledge of good and evil is one such potent symbol. For those who believe the world is being run by a highly organized and ruthless cult which still retains great power worldwide, fear-based symbols are no laughing matter. These are tools used by powerful individuals who practice a secret religion that is most certainly not Christianity. This worldwide cult has a unique belief system based on Lucifer, who might very well be a shape-shifting winged extraterrestrial of the Draco Prime reptilian variety. This would explain all the vampire stories, movies, and imagery of shape-shifting, blood-sucking monsters and archetypical gargoyles. It is disturbing to think that there could be such a bloodthirsty group obsessed with ancient mystery school teachings who wish to sacrifice innocent people to achieve their goals. To them, Lucifer is considered the light bearer, whom they regard as being misunderstood. They draw a clear distinction between Lucifer, who can be summoned by ritualistic means, and Satan, who they believe is only a myth. When we awaken and realize that we have been controlled and manipulated by fear, even subconsciously by symbolism, and thus keeping us in a state of low vibration, we immediately begin to shift the balance. When we inject more love, peace, harmony, and compassion into our lives and out to the world around us, quantum mechanics restructures the geometric patterning of the entire universe, which can enable us to unify as one. Once we reinterpret and reclaim the symbols, our awakened vision will transform them into their rightful role as powerful and positive images for humans. The following are some of the most potent symbols used throughout recorded history. The Eye of Horus. The Eye of Horus, also called the Eye of Ra, is usually found personified in the goddess Wadjet. It was an ancient Egyptian symbol used for protection and symbolized royal power. Legend has it that Wadjet was the daughter of Atum, the first god of the universe. He created her as his eye, which may be represented as the third eye of wisdom. The name Wadjet is derived from Waj, meaning green, hence the green one, and was known to the Greeks and Romans as the risen one, as depicted by the image of a cobra rising up in protection. The cobra is seen on many pharaoh headdresses and represents the fiery eye of the sun. Symbolically, the Eye of Horus represents the pineal gland. often depicted as a pine cone. Horus was believed to rule in all parts of the created world, such as the sky, the earth, and the underworld. The Eye of Ra represents the light of the sun god Ra, which represents eternal life. Light is the electromagnetic radiation of a wavelength that is visible to the human eye. The sun god Ra, the god of light, is associated with the pine cone and, subsequently, the pineal gland, or the third eye. Egyptian lore relates that Isis gave birth to Osiris's posthumous son, Horus. The Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor is thought by some scholars to be a thinly veiled symbol of the Egyptian goddess Isis. She is regarded as the female aspect of Lucifer in the hidden occult religion that exists to this day. This claim is illustrated by the beams of light radiating from Lady Liberty's head and the torch that symbolizes the sacred fire of antiquity, also known as a knowledge of the mysteries. Also, the book she holds symbolizes the hidden teachings of an underground organization, an occult group that flash their symbols above ground. The Ankh. This characteristic cross symbol with an oval top evolved over 5,000 years ago in African civilization and culture. In many ways, the Ankh is a symbol that is beyond religion, as it depicts the universe and it represents all people. The loop at the top of the Ankh symbolizes the feminine womb, which is also identified as eternal life, while the elongated lower section represents the masculine aspect of the penis. These two sacred units come together in the Ankh and form life. It has long been a symbol for personal power to give and sustain life. Because of its powerful appeal, the Ankh was used in cultural rituals involving royalty. It is typically associated with the elements such as water, air, and the sun, as well as with the Egyptian gods, who are frequently pictured carrying the Ankh. The Ankh is the oldest metaphysical symbol known to humanity. It is commonly regarded to mean life in the language of ancient Kemet, renamed Egypt by the Greeks. To the ancient Egyptians, the Ankh symbol is representative of divine life and divine creation. The Ankh also portrayed as the key of life, the key of the Nile, or the crux ansata, was the Egyptian hieroglyphic character that reads eternal life. Egyptian gods are often portrayed carrying it by its loop, or bearing one in each hand, arms crossed over their chests. The Ankh appears frequently in Egyptian tomb paintings and other art, often at the fingertips of a god or goddess in images that represent the deities of the afterlife, conferring the gift of life on the Egyptian's mummy, thought to symbolize the act of conception. For ancient Egyptians, it also symbolized the unity of opposites, the creation of life, and the unity of masculine and feminine forces in the universe. It is symbolic of the union of male and female and the conceiving of offspring, such as the Chinese symbol of yin and yang, representing the positive and negative forces in the universe. The Isisian codes of ancient Egypt were the original and the primary occult code. Additionally, an Ankh was often carried by Egyptians as an amulet, either alone or in connection with two other hieroglyphs that mean strength and health. Mirrors of beaten metal were often made in the shape of an ankh. The Egyptian ankh and the Christian cross both symbolize the vertical and the horizontal axis of our existence. Horizontal is the third dimensional world all around us, where the vertical connects us to the above. The vertical, the ascendant, connects us to objective love. Subjective love is conditional. Objective love is unconditional. We must start with love for ourselves, then love can radiate to others. In the end, love is the answer no matter what the question. Focus on service to others before service to oneself, and when the purpose is love, they are one and the same. Christian cross. The Christian cross, seen as a representation of the instrument of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, is the best known religious symbol of Christianity. The cross-shaped sign, represented in its simplest form by a crossing of two lines at right angles, greatly antedates in both East and West the introduction of Christianity, and goes back to a very remote period of human civilization. The Catholic Church still annually celebrates what is called the Feast of the Triumph of the Cross. Of course, the cross has other arcane uses and, by extension, esoteric practices. The ancient practice of alchemy, the long revered art that sought to turn lead into gold, is often thought of today as a pseudoscience, but it has also been used throughout the centuries as a metaphor for personal transformation. The process of removing impurities to elevate something into something else that is greater, more special, and more potent is what most Christian Masons desire. Quote, take good men and make them grow into something more special, end quote, is a Masonic maxim. Freemason initiates go through a ritual that is meant to be intense and startling. First, the subject's vision is removed with a hoodwink placed over his head. Then a master mason, dressed as the Grim Reaper, issues a warning, quote, if you persevere, you will be purified. You will overcome darkness. You will be enlightened. But if your soul is fearful, do not proceed, end quote. The disturbing part of this ritual that gets very little mention is that initiates swear to never reveal any of the secrets of the Masons on penalty of death. It is stated that, quote, the penalty for revealing Freemason secrets is supposed to be gory death, end quote. Those who elect to continue are then led into a place the Masons call a chamber of reflection, where the hoodwink is removed. At this point, the initiate is presented with a very interesting image. You would think a Christian cross would be prominent, yet the chamber contains a human skull and bones, elements used in alchemy, and a pen and paper where the initiate can write a last will and testament. The symbols are meant to help initiates think about the fact that their life is not going to last forever and usually has a profound effect. This kind of macabre symbolism has driven conspiracy theorists throughout the centuries to think that Freemasons practice a sort of black magic. But Masonic rituals are not so alien to other practices. If a Catholic chapel, for example, pulled the shades and you heard through the grapevine that people were kneeling under a crucifix, an instrument of torture and consuming blood and flesh ritualistically, one might think, what a terrible organization. Thus, the major difference here is that the Masons and other secret societies shroud their rituals in secrecy, while the Catholic Church performs theirs openly. Seal of Solomon. In alchemy, the combination of the fire and water symbols, the up and down triangles, is known as the Seal of Solomon. This symbol represents the combination of opposites and transmutation. By combining the alchemical symbol for fire, the upwards triangle, and the downward triangle for water, the alchemical symbols for earth and air are also created. The downward-facing triangle is divided along the center by the baseline of the opposite triangle. This is the alchemical symbol for earth. Conversely, the upward-facing triangle divided by the baseline of the downward triangle is the alchemical symbol for air. The Seal of Solomon represents all that is unified in perfect balance. It is also the symbol of the spirit wheel, known as the Merkaba. The mythical Solomon's Temple was located in what is today Jerusalem, a structure that supposedly housed the ultra-sacred Ark of the Covenant. Although there is no concrete evidence that it ever existed, Solomon's Temple functioned as a religious focal point in ancient Judaism for the worship of a monotheistic deity. Two temples were built on the same location and subsequently destroyed. Solomon's Temple, also known as the First Temple, was constructed by the wise King Solomon, leader of the ancient Israelites, on the location called Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. Similar to Muslims sending their prayers towards Mecca, Mount Moriah is the holiest site in Judaism, and it is the place Jews turn towards during prayer. Due to its extreme sanctity, most Jews will not walk on the mount in order to avoid unintentionally entering the area where the Holy of Holies stood, since, according to rabbinical law, some aspect of the divine presence is still present at the site. It was from the Holy of Holies that the priestly caste communicated directly with God. Christianity, as it emerged out of the Second Temple of Judaism, stood in competition with other religions advocating pagan monotheism, including Neoplatonism, Mithraism, Gnosticism, Manichaeism, and the cult of Dionysus. A third temple is prophesied to be built on the Temple Mount by the Jews at some future date, but the dilemma for Jews is that a Muslim temple called Dome of the Rock currently resides upon Mount Moriah. Freemasonry symbols. The first Masons were said to literally be stonecutters and engineers. They were the men who built the great cathedrals of Europe and who guarded their trade secrets faithfully. The Freemasons have long recognized the knowledge of sacred geometry and their deeper symbolic meanings. The central Masonic symbol is the compass, used for mathematics and sacred geometry. A modern compass is a navigational instrument for determining a direction relative to the Earth's magnetic poles. It consists of a magnetized pointer, usually marked on the north end and free to align itself with Earth's magnetic field. Prior to the introduction of the compass, position, destination, and direction of the sea were primarily determined by the sighting of landmarks, supplemented with the observation of the position of celestial bodies. The stonecutter tradesmen began Another system associated with Freemasonry, the so-called 3 degrees, that of the apprentice, fellow of the craft, and the master mason. These designations are still used within Freemasonry today, as are the symbols of a square and compass, the primary stonemason's tools, along with the letter G, signifying both geometry and God. At meetings, Masons wear elaborately decorated lambskin aprons, symbolic representations of those worn by working stone masons. Some say there's much more to Freemasonry, a deeper, older, and more mystical side beyond that which is portrayed to the world. Freemasonry has been a vessel, a channel, and a receptacle for some very ancient ideas. In fact, some Masons say the group originated during biblical times in the Holy Land and were the builders of King Solomon's temple. Many Masonic symbols are even older than that. The hexagram is featured within and on the outside of many Masonic temples as a decoration. The hexagram, one of the world's most ancient symbols, may have been designed into the structures of King Solomon's temple, from which Freemasons have been inspired in their philosophies and studies. The all-seeing eye, the pyramid, and the obelisk are all images that draw very deeply upon symbols of pre-Christian religion, because it was believed to be a part for a chain of a spiritual search for truth that was far older than any modern or contemporary religion. 33 is a very important number to the Freemasons in ancient mysticism, and there's a reason that Jesus Christ was said to be 33 years old at the time of his death. There is a reason that there are 33 vertebrae in our spine, and that much of Freemasonry has to do with the concept of the body as a temple. 33 repeats throughout the Masonic house of the temple. For example, there are 33 columns or pillars, each 33 feet tall. It is no coincidence that the capstone on the Washington Monument weighs exactly 3,300 pounds, thereby interpreting that mystical number. The United Grand Lodge of England is the main governing body of Freemasonry. It is the oldest Grand Lodge in the world and traces its origin back to 1717. Together with the Grand Lodge of Ireland and the Grand Lodge of Scotland, these three are often referred to by their members as the home Grand Lodges or the home constitutions. Many historians believe Masonry traces its roots back farther to the Knights Templar. Others claim it is largely based on the surviving remnants of a highly secretive Roman mystery cult known as Mithraism, renowned for decadent festival celebrations of drinking, dancing, and sexual promiscuity. Or, stated another way, Freemasonry came out of Scotland as a revamped version of Mithraism and spurred on by the influx of the outlawed Knights Templar. Animal sacrifices, mostly of birds, were conducted in the underground Mithric temples and other pagan mystery schools in the centuries before Christ. The ritual killing of a bull, called taurooctomy, played a key role in the Mithric mysteries. If ambitious members were comfortable with animal sacrifices, they could graduate to view human sacrifices as also having spiritual value. Mystery religions, by definition, keep secrets. Just as Freemasons use symbols during their rituals and degree ceremonies to teach initiates and members about Masonic traditions and values, they also use symbols to identify the officers of the lodge. There are 13 officers who oversee the business of each lodge. The head is the master, followed by senior and junior wardens, secretary, treasurer, senior and junior deacons, senior and junior stewards, marshal, inner guard, Tyler, and chaplain. Many levels of symbology can be found wherever the Freemasons operate. For example, Masonic symbolism is rife within the design of the great monuments and buildings in Washington, D.C. Yet not only is this kept hidden from the public, most history books also fail to mention the powerful influence that the Masons had throughout the early years of the establishment of the Republic. To Freemasons, knowledge is equal to power. Then why all the secrecy? It would seem the Freemasons are using the knowledge of sacred geometry to play God on earth. Freemasons assume that members believed in a supreme being, but that is as far as it goes. Masons can worship Yahweh, Jesus, Allah, or another god of their own choosing. Religious freedom is built into Freemasonry, and many scholars say the Freemasons also built this concept into the U.S. Constitution. 1/3 of the signers were known to be Freemasons. Most citizens don't know this, nor do they know that America was not founded as a Christian country. It later became a Christian country, but it is important to remember that many of the founding fathers were deists. The concepts behind deism, where a person is regarded as powerful and that each of us is responsible for our own life, is the underlying and core belief of Freemasonry. Deists believe that a supreme being created the universe, but that being is impersonal. It will not answer your prayers or even hear them. Thus, the need for Masons to be independent and responsible for their actions. The founding fathers, as the Masons, were highly focused on morals and values. Yet, as the Masons' power grew in the decades after independence, morals took a back seat as power and corruption moved to the foreground. The Masons' secret is to keep those outside their fraternity trapped in a fear-based mentality, otherwise known as being in a low vibration. Fear, hate, anger, and suspicion can confine a person to the earthly third-dimensional reality, withholding knowledge and preventing us from realizing who we really are is a strategy to block our evolving and ascending into the next level of consciousness. Total power equals total control. The Cabal, the so-called master controllers, have long traced their roots to Freemasonry. The fraternal order provided an effective cover of secrecy and allowed the highest-ranking members to be recruited into yet another, far more secretive group. The Masons are often linked to other secret societies and claim an ancient heritage, such as that of the Knights Templar, the Rosicrucians, and the Bavarian Illuminati. The Knights Templar, reputed to be some of the fiercest warriors of their time, were officially endorsed by the Catholic Church in the early 12th century, when they became very rich and powerful, as being among the world's first international bankers. They became a threat. By the early 14th century, the church and French royalty were largely successful in destroying the entire order. Some believe the superstition around Friday the 13th came from a secret edict issued by the King of France on Friday the 13th of October in 1307 to arrest all members of the order. Only 2 centuries ago did the Vatican denounce the Masons as being satanic. Symbols of the Illuminati. The Illuminati began as a secret society under the direction of Jesuit priests. Later, straying from their Jesuit roots, a council of 5 men, one for each of the points on the pentagram, formed what was called the Ancient and Illuminated Seers of Bavaria. They became high-order Luciferian Freemasons, thoroughly immersed in mysticism and the Eastern mental disciplines, and seeking to develop the superpowers of the mind. Their alleged plan and purpose was, and remains, world domination for their lord, the fallen angel Lucifer. This then morphed into an 18th century German sect that adopted the name Illuminati. They practiced the occult and professed to possess the light that Lucifer had retained when he became Satan. This Illuminati group infiltrated Freemasonry in 1780 and established an ethos based on nihilism and the naked lust for worldly power. These are the roots of the current Illuminati, the secret organization that has evolved into a mastodonic nightmare, successfully creating and controlling a shadow government that supersedes several national governments, and in whose hands now lie the destiny of the world. The lengths to which this organization has gone to create the political machinery and influence public sentiment to the degree necessary to promote its self-perpetuating prophecy is mind-boggling. The symbol of the Illuminati illustrate a unique teaching mechanism to explain their craft. Each of their letters is fused to a series of numbers, and these numbers are further fused to a series of ciphers. One cannot know the value of any given number save for the contextual material which surrounds the letters. In this definition, contextual material includes the letters surrounding any given letter, definitions based on the context where a particular letter may be found, as well as the symbols that may be associated with the letter. The German word Rothschild derives from red shield, a symbol that was displayed over the door of the Bauer family money-lending business. The red flag was the emblem of the revolutionary-minded Jews in Eastern Europe. Recognizing the true significance of the red shield that his father had adopted as his emblem from the red flag, Mayer Amschel Bauer changed the family name to Rothschild in 1743. It was at this point that the House of Rothschild came into being. Some people don't want us to know the truth about who the Illuminati are in reality. Those who have knowledge have no need to give it to the public, and those to whom it is given who demonstrate any whisper of disloyalty often find themselves receiving nothing and ostracized from the power group. Human nature is what it is, and since humanity is in a state of triage, a decision must be made to rapidly discern between those who might benefit from an effort of interventionism and those who would not benefit from an effort to intervene. An elitist or illuminist view would simply say that those who are awake have no responsibility for those who are asleep. To researchers who study occult symbols, the Illuminati and the highest-ranking Freemasons offer tantalizing clues which show they are collectively the ones known as Luciferians. Their most powerful symbol is the all-seeing eye, and their most popular occult hand sign is the pinky and index finger horn. Also peculiar is the number 666, which appears on all barcodes. Any study of popular culture, music, and films will find all the usual suspects, along with some symbols used for mind control. All the worshipped gods are said to be the few surviving generations of Anunnaki reptilians going under various names down through the centuries, such as Nimrod, Anubis, Horus, Osiris, Baal, Shamash, Janus, Quetzalcoatl, Baphomet, Moloch, and Lucifer. All these deities feature either serpent or horn symbols, sometimes incorporating both. The symbols are their secret language, and they have shown the connections down the years by the use of the same symbols, such as those used in Freemasonry, communism, and the corporate U.S. government with the hidden hand of history. Pentacle. A pentacle is an amulet used in magical evocation, generally made of parchment, paper, or metal, although it can be made of other materials. It is the symbol of a spirit or energy being evoked. As a trinket, it is often worn around the neck or placed within the triangle of evocation. Protective symbols may also be included, such as the Seal of Solomon, also called a Pentacle of Solomon. Many varieties of pentacles can be found in the grimoires of Solomonic magic, which gained notoriety during the Middle Ages. Pentacles are also used in some neo-pagan magical traditions, such as Wicca, alongside other magical tools. The pentagram in witchcraft symbolizes white magic, but is more commonly associated with black magic. The pentagram with 1 point up symbolizes white magic. The pentagram with 2 points up represents black magic or Satanism. The devil is depicted with 2 horns, symbolizing the upside-down pentagram. The geometric property of the pentagram is that its lines bisect each other according to the ratios of the golden section. In other words, the relationship of AB to BC and of BC to AC is phi, and all other internal divisions of this figure produce the same proportional relationship. The 5-pointed star symbols are derived from traditional morning star pentagrams and are no longer regularly used in mainstream Christianity. The original Trinity in Egypt came from the division of the daytime, the 3 lifespans of the life of a day. Horus, representing the morning, was the rising sun, or the Son of God. The Most High was noon, the highest the sun could be. And the goddess Set, from where we get sunset, represents the other 12 hours, the nighttime, the time of darkness, terror, or fright. Such was the basis for some symbols associated with early Christian sects. Occultistic pentagrams can be seen showing the 5 Hebrew letters of the pentagramation, or YHWSH, the esoteric name attributed to Jesus. Christians commonly use the pentagram to represent the 5 wounds suffered by Jesus during the Passion Play. The word occult comes from the Latin word occultus, meaning clandestine, hidden or secret, and referring to knowledge of the hidden. The pentagram also has several associations with Freemasonry. The pentacle has also long been associated with the divine feminine awakening. The orbit of Venus, as viewed from Earth, forms the shape of a pentagram. When the pentagram star points upwards, it represents the masculine, reaching towards Father Sky. The pentacle has also long been associated with the divine feminine awakening. The orbit of Venus, as viewed from Earth, forms the shape of a pentagram. When the pentagram star points upwards, it represents the masculine, reaching toward Father Sky. When it points downwards, it represents the feminine, pulling energy to Mother Earth. With the masculine representation, the top is phallic. With the feminine representation, the top is chalice-like, ready to receive. Merkaba light vehicle. Merkaba, also spelled Merkaba, is the divine light vehicle allegedly used by ascended masters to connect with and reach those in tune with the higher realms. Merkaba was the Hebrew chariot of ascension, and the Hebrew word Merkaba means chariot, with a general meaning to ride. It is used in Ezekiel 1:4-26 to refer to the throne chariot of God, the four-wheeled vehicle driven by four chayat, each of which has four wings and the four faces of a man, lion, ox, and eagle. Mer means light. Ka means spirit. Ba means body. Light is electromagnetic radiation
of all wavelengths, whether visible or not. Thus, the Merkaba means the spirit body surrounded by counter-rotating fields of light. The wheels within wheels, and spirals of energy, as in our DNA, which transports spirit from the body to one dimension or another. In this grand universe of ours, we are all interconnected. We are parts of the same fabric. We create the same geometry together in the fractal field.
From micro to macro, atoms to cosmos, we are all made of the same material. All atoms and particles initially came from the stars. The star tetrahedron is two tetrahedra in inverse alignment to each other. It is a three-dimensional Star of David, which is the sacred symbol at the center of this form and is the pattern of the etheric light grid that surrounds each human being. The Star of David is the symbol of the Merkaba, or vehicle of light, which we all have surrounding us as a light vibration. It has been used by the ascended masters of Ruach HaKodesh, enabling them to travel back and forth through the reality of time. They also have the gift of magic, which is procreation and eternal life. This grid is called the Merkaba, and it is an interdimensional vehicle used initially to incarnate spirit into human bodily form. The universal energy of love is the fuel for this vehicle. In modern esoteric teachings, the Merkaba is an interdimensional vehicle consisting of two equally sized, interlocked tetrahedron of light with a common center, where one tetrahedron points up and the other down. This point symmetric form is called a stella octanagula, or stellated octahedron, which can also be contrived by extending the faces of a regular octahedron until they intersect again. The Earth and the human body are almost identical energetically. Not only is the Earth's Kundalini energy very similar to humans, but even such massive energy fields as the Merkaba field, also known as the light body, is exactly the same proportion and only different in size. Every electromagnetic and geometrical field within the Merkaba field of the Earth is exactly identical to every human being on the planet. The Merkaba field is extremely complex and integrating the 5 Platonic solids and other sacred polyhedron shapes. Technically, it is an electromagnetic field that sits at about 4 degrees and found primarily within the microwave range, at least in our 3rd dimension, and that is entirely geometric in nature. These geometric fields are the foundational building blocks of matter, insomuch as they represent the architectural infrastructures wherein shape can take form. This infrastructure is believed to extend through all possible dimensional and parallel universes, and so it is possible for an enlightened being to electromagnetically change its nature to whatever is appropriate. The Mobius shapes. The Mobius loop is a continuous one-sided surface that can be formed from a rectangular strip by rotating one end 180 degrees and attaching it to the opposite end. It is an infinite surface with only one side and only one edge, thus it has no beginning and no end. For example, if an ant were to crawl along the length of the strip, it would return to its starting point, having traversed every part of the strip without ever crossing an edge. Thus, the edge of a Mobius strip is topologically equivalent to the circle. Under the usual embedding of the strip in Euclidean space, as above, this edge is not an ordinary flat circle. It is possible, however, to embed a Mobius strip in 3 dimensions so that the edge is a circle. A scientific application was a device called a Mobius resistor, which was an electronic circuit element that had the property of canceling its own inductive reactance. Nikola Tesla patented similar technology in the early 1900s, in which he named the coil for electromagnets. The shape of the Mobius strip dates back to ancient times. An Alexandrian manuscript of early alchemical diagrams contain an illustration with the visual proportions of the Mobius strip. A model can easily be created by taking a paper strip and giving it a half twist and then joining the ends of the strip together to form a loop. This fascinating shape expresses transformation. The Mobius strip shape is symbolic of eternal change within stillness itself. Another similarly shaped object is Ouroboros, which was and is the name for the great world serpent encircling the earth. The word Ouroboros is really a term that describes a similar symbol that has been cross-pollinated from many different cultures. This symbol appears principally among the Gnostics and is depicted as a dragon, snake, or serpent looping around and swallowing or biting its own tail. In the broadest sense, it is symbolic of time and the continuity of life. The Ouroboros is seen in virtually all ancient cultures, from Egypt and China to Aztec and Nordic imagery. It was not only a symbol of occultism, but it has turned up in 2001 as a crop circle formation near Badbury, Wiltshire. Plato described a self-eating circular beast as being the first living thing in the universe, an immortal, mythologically constructed beast. The Ouroboros symbolizes a connection between human and God, or the above and below, and represents the conflict of life, as well as that life comes out of the drama between life and death. In other words, my life is my beginning. In a sense, life feeds off itself, and thus good and bad connotations can be drawn. It is a single image containing the entire actions of a life cycle. It begets, weds, impregnates, and slays itself, but in a cyclical rather than a linear sense. The Ouroboros biting its own tail is symbolic of self-fecundation, or the primitive idea of a self-sufficient nature. The Mobius strip has several curious properties. A line drawn starting from the seam down the middle will meet back at the seam, but at the other side. There are, in fact, two types of Mobius strips depending on the direction of the half twist, clockwise and counterclockwise. The Mobius strip is therefore chiral, which means right-handed or left-handed, like amino acids. Fractals. Fractals are associated with the mathematics of chaos theory, but they are in fact very ordered. A fractal is an infinite amount of interlocking, self-replicating, and imitating natural objects. They look chaotic, but are truly governed by a definite geometry. The essence of measuring or describing a fractal is to isolate the basic pattern, which is called its initial recursive mathematical function. Interestingly, the Fibonacci series is one such function. Another description of a fractal is a rough or fragmented geometric shape that can be split into parts, each of which is approximately a reduced sized copy of the whole, a property called self-similarity, meaning that any image taken from a particular section of the set can be replicated by zooming in or out, and is infinitely complex. Roots of mathematically rigorous treatment of fractals can be traced back to functions studied by Karl Weierstrass, George Cantor, and Felix Hausdorff, who studied functions that were analytic but not differentiable. However, the term fractal was coined by Benoit Mandelbrot in 1975 and was derived from the Latin word fractus, meaning broken or fractured. The Mandelbrot set is a pattern of geometric points that repeats within itself. Fractals do not lose their detail or their proportions when they are magnified or reduced, even to the microscopic level. This property is highly reminiscent of the golden mean, or the 1.618 proportion of phi, where the same essential and sacred proportion is retained at every level when the image is scaled up or down. A mathematical fractal is based on an equation that undergoes iteration, a form of feedback based on recursion. Indeed, the qualities of both fractals and phi are concerned with growth. Because they appear similar at all levels of magnification, fractals are often considered to be infinitely complex. Natural objects that are approximated by fractals to a degree include cloud formations, mountain ranges, lightning bolts, coastlines, snowflakes, flowers, various vegetables such as cauliflower and broccoli, and animal coloration patterns. Crop circles. Genuine crop circles are based on sacred geometry formations and appear to be made from spirals of light and energy. Materialization occurs by the spin or motion of spirals, and indeed, crop circles are made within seconds. The golden mean spiral spins energy from one state to another by shifts in frequency ranges, and the results are beautiful and sometimes three-dimensional patterns and symbols. Crop circles are incredible work of geometric art, which is no small undertaking. They do not always appear in fields of crops either. Some appear in the snow or sand. Nothing about them is casual, slapdash, or unintelligent. Quite the contrary. Their designs are often incredibly clever and inventive. Some even border on the realm of genius. Sacred geometry and crop glyphs created via radiation and sound waves, the study called semantics, is the key to understanding genuine crop circle formations and what the non-terrestrial entities are trying to tell us. Sometimes crop circle formations seem to speak of important wisdom and ancient knowledge, yet it is quite impossible to convert that conviction into words. They have iconic design elements from ancient cultures such as Egyptian, Mayan, Hopi, and even Greek. Other designs display cutting-edge mathematics showing the relationship between outer expanding infinity and inner expanding infinity. Each pattern is unique, original, and beautifully crafted. Some have standing centers and others have knots and nests of swirled wheat stems intricately interwoven, but the stalks are never broken. It is believed crop circles are created by some kind of an unseen electromagnetic and sound wave force with microwave-like properties. Amazingly, they do not damage the crops in the layering process. Semantics is the study of the effects of sound vibration on physical matter, such as crop circles. The many geometric patterns that emerge from varying frequencies of vibration could be the ultimate study of sacred symbology. B. Symbolic communication. Lastly, humans are not the only species who are able to construct using sacred geometry and detect complex patterns. Bees not only see flowers in different colors than we do, but bees also see ultraviolet light patterns that are invisible to humans. These ultraviolet patterns serve as landing zones, guiding the bees to the nectar source. It is sometimes argued that the various species of honeybees are the only invertebrates, and indeed one of the only non-human groups to have evolved a system of abstract symbolic communication, where a behavior is used to convey specific information about something in the environment, such as the sounds made by bees when using their wing vibration to convey specific messages. The Holy Islamic Quran has an interesting take on the bees in the passage 16:68-69. The Quran says, quote, "And your Lord inspired the bee to build its hive on the hills and the trees, and on the rooftops of buildings. And he inspired the bee to suck the nectar of all kinds of fruit, and follow the smooth path laid down by your Lord. There comes forth from their bellies a drink of varying color, wherein is healing for men. Verily, in this is indeed a sign for people who think." End quote. It can be said that sacred geometry and sacred symbols are the organizational basis of all that exists, has existed, and will exist. Found within these patterns are both 2- and 3-dimensional shapes that carry archetypical memories. The pineal gland holds the memories of these archetypical experiences and serves as the Akashic records within each of us. The Akashic records are often described as a huge library in the ether containing all of the experiences of all souls throughout all incarnations. The pineal gland is the master gland containing access to the records for an individual's various incarnations. As we'll see next, the pineal gland is associated with countless spiritual experiences. There has also been a sustained suppression of its understanding and usage in this modern age.